Good evening and welcome to the State of Scottish Football. It's your Tuesday evening instalment with yourself, Mr. David Smith, and the State of Mind have got the budget out again. We've taken out a you David Tint, and as you could tell from his rather fantastic looking background, he's also a big Livingston fan. So we introduce yourself to Angus McGregor, who runs the Talk Livingston podcast. And Angus, say hello.
Thanks very much for having me, guys. Yeah, delighted to be here. Obviously, you're talking about pulling out the budget. There's not a lot of times that people say that regarding Livingston, so definitely glad to be a part of this and get into talking about Scottish football.
Absolutely. If you're tuning in, thanks very much. And obviously, if you've got any questions, any thoughts, any opinions on what we're going to say, just put them in the comments section. Now, obviously, as you might notice in my top right hand corner, we've got a sponsor called ETIV Watches. I made sure I got that right there. If listeners click on the link in the video description, they'll get a 50% discount on any purchase. Obviously, that discount doesn't come off until the checkout, of course. So ETIV have given us a watch to give to one lucky YouTube subscriber. The last time I counted, we've got 15,000 or 15k, sorry, subscribers, which is absolutely fantastic, and thanks very much to every single one of you that's tuned in. And obviously we'll have a link, and everybody goes into that YouTube link, you might be the lucky guy that wins a fantastic watch that'll go around your wrist. So here's hoping you can get lucky. But Angus, on to the main talking point. We'll obviously start with the red zones to be scrapped, followed by how Scotland will line up against Israel. But first and foremost, on the red zones to be scrapped, and let's just say my game plan went out the window at 4:45 when I found out Stephen McGowan put on Twitter in the Daily Mail, of course, that this is going to be scrapped. But first and foremost, fantastic news for the Scottish football community that this is getting scrapped.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, being a Livingston fan, we've not really been affected by this, but I think we may be the only team who kind of hasn't been. But yeah, football without fans is nothing. Is always the saying that's being used in that, and yeah, for away fans to be allowed back into like grounds at kind of like the normal capacity again is, it's what the game needs. It's always a much better spectacle. I mean, the obvious one to kind of point at is, the Old Firm derbies. It's just not the same whenever, it's only kind of one kind of team they're creating that atmosphere. You need that wee bit of competitiveness, rivalry between them. So yeah, absolutely great news for the country to have, and hopefully we can see some cracking atmospheres in the near future.
Absolutely. You're touching the fans there, Angus. I mean, we've seen a lot of permutations already with regards to this, and it's been a difficult predicament for all away fans concerned, because I mean, you've compared the Old Firm derby there, but you also see Celtic against Raith Rovers, Celtic against Dundee United, Rangers against Hibs, all fantastic games on the park, but just missing that spectacle of away fans.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you just always kind of need that thing. I mean, I think it was Celtic and Celtic and Raith Rovers in the Cup especially. You're talking about a stadium that isn't properly sold out, but yeah, because obviously the kind of restrictions that have had to be put in place for it, it kind of robs the people the chance to do so, to be there and create a better atmosphere than it was. I mean, something like that could be the difference in helping a team have that bit more confidence to get into a game or whatnot. But yeah, the away fans have got to be back in. Hopefully, the games will continue to come with such high quality, with people there to see them.
How much of a difference have you seen based on obviously watching Livingston playing games away from home? How much have you noticed a difference when you've been playing away from home, or indeed teams have been playing at the Tony McIlroy Arena?
Away from home for us is never really the best of things, in all honesty. I mean, we're quite comfortable in saying that we probably got the worst, well, by far the worst support probably, and not even just the Premiership, but the Premiership and the Championship as well. We don't take an awful lot, so it doesn't really affect us an awful lot. We do have a kind of a good hardcore kind of selection of supporters, but nothing to really make an indent. Probably more so you can tell from when we've played slightly bigger teams, when they've come to visit us at the Tony Macaroni Arena. The likes of Aberdeen, when we played them in our first home game of the season, that was brilliant to kind of see, a kind of a packed stadium yet again, and you could tell, that kind of game, it was kind of even Stevens for most of it, But Aberdeen had that big crowd that was able to kind of lure them on and keep them going on. I would say the same about Celtic, but it just wasn't their day on that time, perhaps.
Absolutely. Based on obviously the atmosphere that away fans can go and create, it's only going to be a huge positive now moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, yeah, we've talked about a number of those games already, and the next Old Firm one, depending on whether Celtic are going to allow Rangers fans to get in for this one. I think in the red zones they said they're going to leave it up to the clubs to decide for that. You wouldn't like to see any teams kind of playing schematics against one another, but in Scottish football, would you put it past teams doing it? I'm not too sure about that.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. With regards to, but obviously the home teams as well, there's obviously been a lot of pressure put in the home clubs with regards to making sure all the protocols are spot on, everything's got to be meticulous by the home clubs in question. But when you look at this whole situation, it's a monkey off the back for the clubs to a degree.
Yeah, definitely. For the likes of us, who we've got kind of a small stadium, kind of close counters with inside of it and all of that. There isn't an awful lot of room for us to kind of like maneuver about and whatnot. And there was times where we were having to kind of split up like our home dressing room and stuff like that. So you'd have half the team getting changed in one bit, doing their own thing, and then another doing so elsewhere as well. So even small things like that can make a difference to just team harmony. So something like that is great for a club like us, especially when we're in a bit of a rut now, to kind of get that away, get the team in together, and we can kind of rebuild that kind of team confidence up in that. But yeah, fans on that probably not the only ones who are being happy to see this going away, but yeah, the players as well.
Absolutely. And the big thing for me is both sides will be able to go out the same tunnel now, whilst there's been a wee bit of a makeshift with regards to one team's been in one area and one team's been in another area. And that's a huge positive within itself as well.
Yeah, I think we had that actually there just at the weekend. We were playing St Mirren, and I think there was a wee bit of a fuss kicked up because St Mirren were late coming out for the second half. To be fair to them, they were having to come from the opposite corner of the stadium and that, so you can't really have too much of a gripe about it. They can only do is what they can under these protocols. But yeah, it's always just a better spectacle as well to see that. I mean, you go in a game on Sky or BT or whatever, and you just see the two teams lining up, walking out alongside one another. It's always kind of just it makes the game seem a bit more important than that, rather than I think it was against Motherwell and Dundee United last season. You'd see the players just running down from this top of the stands and that. It just presents the game a lot better, and it's more appealing on the eye.
Absolutely. So we've touched upon away fans. The next bit I'm going to touch upon is hospitality areas, and a lot of football clubs do rely on hospitality coming into their clubs, and I mean, probably every club, and I include the Old Firm in this, are probably reliant on Old Firm with regards to getting money into their coffers, and it helps with football operations, it helps with community trust operations, it helps with anything that's involved with running a football club. With regards to hospitality, it's just fantastic that we can get hospitality back up and running. Again, I know there's been some smaller clubs, and I know Aberdeen Football Club in particular, because I'm an Aberdeen fan, have been running a lot of hospitality stuff, but for every club to get in now, it's a huge bonus.
Yeah, again, any extra income that can help these teams is very crucial. Yeah, anything that can help with regards to even if it's just match day kind of hospitality, to even just pre-game stuff, to even post-game stuff, the ability for clubs to have those kind of things running again will make a massive difference. The likes of us as well, we're already operating on a very small budget. We would have taken a massive hit last season from not only missing out on the gates from the bigger teams coming, but that money that's been spent pre-match, post-match, and that from people visiting to kind of make a proper day out of it. So yeah, absolutely, 100% is a massive thing for the rest of the teams. Even lower in divisions, you look at that, you'll see that a lot of them will be very thankful to see that they can operate once again kind of at the normal capacities.
Absolutely. The thing is that hospitality in terms of match days, it usually operates from lunchtime till about, well, it can operate till any time basically, but predominantly 6, 7, 8 o'clock, which means you get a really good day out if you're at hospitality. And it's probably a little bit different from the spectacle of being a fan. And I'm just going to bring up this question. So I'll give you a 2-question part here. What's a red zone? A red zone is basically an area within the football ground, predominantly beside tunnels, David, where guys that have been tested for coronavirus. So that could be players, that could be management teams, that could be substitutes, that could be media teams, that could be anybody, as long as they fall under the football team bubble. So that's how a red zone works. So for that to be cleared, it allows fans such as maybe the Celtic Rangers. Obviously, they've had a wee bit of an outcry in the last few weeks with regards to not allowing away fans in. This means we can get fans into the affected areas, and it allows the substitutes of both teams concerned to sit in the dugout rather than sitting in the stands. So I hope I made that fairly easy there. But Angus, on the hospitality front, it's just fantastic, because it's probably a different experience to going out and just doing things just in terms of. It's good in terms of going out to games and being a fan, but it's also good in terms of the hospitality. You can have maybe a 3-course meal, have a few beers or a few glasses of wine if you're a woman, or indeed a male for that matter, and then just go to the game.
Yeah, it's not anything I've probably ever done or could ever really see myself doing, in all honesty. But it's definitely there for a core of supporters and people who want to have a bit of a fancier time at the football, I guess. But yeah, as you said, it opens up kind of possibilities for to accommodate different kind of people's tastes and what they kind of want from whenever they want to go to a football match, rather than just the usual kind of things that a normal punter would have. But yeah, can't say I'll ever be in one. Don't really know an awful lot of what goes on during them, but yeah, glad that they're back, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with regards to the hospitality side of things, it's probably a case of most of the time, I don't know how every club works, but it's probably arriving at about lunchtime on a Saturday. So getting your meal, having a few drinks, making sure you're well oiled before 3 p.m. Half time, you'll probably get a sandwich or a prawn sandwich for that matter, or indeed pies. And then after the game, it's more beers, and then off you go back to the pub. So that's how that works. And the thing is that it is a money grabber for the clubs, but it's also the possibility to get some sponsorship in. And do you think this is an opportunity for the clubs to go and get some extra sponsorship that they very much need now?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it offers up, they can license their premises to, hold a whole bunch of other different things now. Livingston's a wee bit different. We don't actually own our stadium, so it's kind of outsourced to, different kind of companies regardless. So I'm not sure how much, kind of shares of money we get from, these kind of things anyway. There must be a decent amount enough. There was one, and it was quite famous in the news quite recently, but probably not top best to talk about that one. For all our kind of clubs and that, yeah, definitely so. You can try out different things, you can see what works, and anything in Scottish football that brings in money should be a good thing. And any team who can capitalise on that, then yeah, all the best to them. And I know the likes like Hearts and that have a cracking kind of setup and stuff like that. So yeah, delighted for them to have it again. Not at our detriment, no.
Absolutely. We'll move on to training grounds now, and the big thing regarding training is, as I alluded to with David Kelly's comment there, they all had to stay within their own bubbles, and that's why the red zone was implemented. And the thing about training grounds is the fact that there's a bit of freedom now. Obviously, when training sessions take place amongst Premiership clubs in particular, a lot of these Premiership managers want their sessions to remain private, so we don't have a Bielsa Frank Lampard moment. but also, there's also an opportunity for businesses to go and visit training grounds. I mean, I was at the Dundee United press conference last Thursday, and there was 3 businesswomen at the training, not when they were training, of course, but they were at the training ground when we were interviewing Tam Courts and Kerr Smith. So it just shows that we are getting a bit of normality. And the training ground red zone remit getting relaxed is a huge positive within itself as well.
Yeah, again, we kind of touched on that a wee bit when we were talking about, the likes that you can use just the one changing room in that now. It all just helps in, creating like a proper team harmony. Obviously in Scottish football, you see with a lot of teams that we mainly have a large turnover in squads. So this is a kind of a good thing that, you could maybe have, the proper whole squads, combined for the first time in quite a while now. But yeah, anything that can kind of help the team, become more of a unity, become more united, and together on the pitch, yeah, it's a positive boost, and hopefully that'll help improve the quality of the games and that as well. I think last season we'd probably all agree that there was a lot of teams last season who did seem quite sloppy and all of that, didn't have the best of seasons. Maybe this is something quite sillily that could revive some of them. They could work on extra things that they probably wouldn't have been able to because of X, Y, and Z and these protocols. But yeah, again, another huge positive for teams.
And the positive thing from a training ground point of view is there's probably a bit more relaxation in gyms. I know. Obviously, teams will still be able to train at gyms within their training grounds, whatever have you. But this probably offers a bit more relaxation in that regard, which probably helps the strength and conditioning coaches more than anything else.
Aye, even just from the fact that you don't have to properly schedule everybody at completely different times and kind of a rigid thing where it doesn't become enjoyable at the slightest. I mean, I could imagine how much of a headache would it be at times to make sure that this player's doing that, but he's not coinciding with this player, and then that they're not crossing over, and it's all just kind of a load of nonsense that we had to kind of go through. But thankfully, teams and that will be back to the kind of normal training regimes that they'd be used to.
Of course, from a Livingston point of view, you've got your own home basically, so you've got your own church deacon, so to speak, with the Tony Macaroni Arena, so that helps within itself.
Yeah, definitely. Everything's all in our wee stadium. I don't know how that would have affected them, where would half of them have to go in a different section at one time, and the other half would have to as well. Maybe for some of the bigger teams, their actual own training parks would be a bit easier to manage because there is that space. But yeah, our stadium, as small as it is, and that, yeah, it'd be very hard for us to manage to separate everybody all at once. Even in terms of travel and that as well. I mean, you all heard the stories about us going to the cup final and that last season. Everybody was having to take their own cars. Even stuff like that will be a massive thing without being able to change now.
Absolutely, and you brought me on to my next point, but I'll speak about that more in a minute. But with regards to this training ground idea, I mean, it's just a huge positive. And from a Livingston point of view, they were very proactive when it's all kicked off. Coronavirus kicked off, of course. And Derek White, your secretary at the club, deserves huge plaudits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Derek's been absolutely tremendous for the club. Obviously, a very young guy. He took a whole lot of responsibility on, and he projected the club in a great way, kind of leading the way to show exactly what was being done, maybe to put some nerves at ease as well, to see what was going on behind the scenes and that. Yeah, Derek was terrific in how he was kind of broadcasting what was going on, and making sure that everybody kind of knew their stations and that. And we were quite fortunate; we didn't have too many kind of issues with COVID. We didn't have an awful lot of players out at once, and yeah, I think all those who were involved at the club and tackling those kind of issues and that deserve a huge bit of praise for that.
Yeah, absolutely. With regards to we'll obviously get onto the Scotland-Israel preview later on in the show, but to my understanding, Abada is in the squad. I know you've raised a question there, Jamie Young. Abada is in the squad, so whether he's going to play the weekend for Israel, time will tell. But if he does play, it's a huge positive. Because I like to see the best talent we possibly can. But with regards to travel, that's the big thing with this. I mean, from a Livingston point of view, you wouldn't it brilliantly the Livingston travel to the the Betfred Cup final in cars, but now you've got the luxury of getting buses. And even there was a game involving Livingston at Dundee United last season where one of your players got injured, if I'm not mistaken, mm-hmm. Josh Millen. And Josh Millen,
Scott Robinson, I think it was
Scott Robinson, sorry. And he picked up a nasty injury in that game. And Martindale was asked a question after the game regarding how Robinson is, and he was revealing to the media after the game that pretty much we weren't sure how to get him back to Livingston because of the protocols that Livingston had in place.
Yeah, that's exactly the main part of it. Yeah, Robinson, I think it was a back injury or that, so he couldn't, kind of properly sit upright. Just left his car in Dundee and had to go to the hospital, which is absolutely mad to think about. But all those kind of things, they do make a massive difference. I mean, you talked about it there, just going to a Betfred Cup final. just driving up to it as if you're just going to like the local amateurs game. I mean, it does kind of take a wee bit of the glimmer off of the match, and for somebody like Livingston and that as well, who probably costing them a bit more money to fork out petrol money for every player rather than just hiring a big bus for everybody to go through. Even on that kind of financial front, it just kind of makes things a bit harder to kind of go by. But yeah, that kind of thing as well. Players always talk about the travelling and whenever they're they're going on those away journeys and whatnot, that those are the times that it's best for the teams to like kind of come together and that camaraderie can be built. For over a year now, we've kind of been lacking that, and for a team like us right now, that seems sorely needed to build up that kind of confidence back in the dressing room and get the spirits up. So I think that is definitely something that will play a massive part in teams maybe having a wee bit of a resurgence coming like later this year.
And the thing as well, I think I noticed from a Livingston point of view last season. I mean, Livingston played Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup last year, and there's obviously been a relaxation in restaurants and eating in restaurants for a well now with football teams. But if I'm not mistaken, Livingston had a problem with pre-match meals and things like that before playing Aberdeen away in the Scottish Cup last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, not only are Tony Macaroni like the sponsors of the stadium, they do supply meals for the team. So obviously, whenever we were going, what Livy used to do was whenever they'd be playing in a certain city, it would be a stop at a Tony Macaroni's beforehand and then go to the game. So whether that be in Glasgow or be in Dundee or whatnot, like that would be the case. So yeah, for us in particular, that was something that was kind of taken away from us. I know there was a wee bit of a hoopla made up from whenever we did pop into one. I don't know if it was the Aberdeen one, if it was a Dundee one, but there's that again is something as well that the clubs have had to kind of try and reevaluate what they're going to do. Trying to change resources. I mean, for us, it was our team sponsor and that as well, so we probably didn't have an awful lot of like leg room to kind of get out of that and try and explore different options, but. Thankfully, again, something like that is going to be the difference. Although I don't think many of our players should be, snacking down on many pizzas and that before games right now, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing in the travelling now, as well as Livingston wouldn't be accustomed to staying in hotels, but for your bigger clubs, they can stay in hotels the night before games, which is it can be a help or a hindrance.
Yeah. 100%. That kind of relaxation that the kind of the sports scientists and that all want to kind of get their points across as being kind of very helpful and effective in getting teams set up. These kind of bigger clubs and that as well, it may be a wee bit difficult for them to kind of get used to coming, maybe not necessarily coming back down to earth, but coming back down to those kind of roots of the kind of basics, just showing up in a car before a game, kind of just showing up to play the football. Not saying that they're overly pampered, but whenever you've had a routine for so long, it can be quite hard to break, and it can come as quite a harsh reality at times. But I guess we'll be back to it in no time, and maybe those kind of advantages will come out to see.
With regards to the way forward for this, are you just hoping now that there's a wee bit less apprehension from the Scottish football fans in order? Obviously, we're understanding about this vaccine certificate that's the way to come in, but are you hopefully a bit more or a wee bit less apprehensive about hopefully getting more crowds at the grounds again?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I've seen that being too much of an issue anyway. Of course, there will be a lot of supporters and that who may not feel comfortable to kind of go out just yet, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I feel like there is a committee kind of support there who are already kind of going out there now. I think Celtic and Rangers and that will probably just continue going on as it has been, and everybody else. I feel like most other teams in the league, the kind of support that's been there is, probably what they're just going to get anyway. But yeah, hopefully, that can encourage, the people who've perhaps been kind of holding on for a wee bit longer to kind of go out to something like that. Hopefully, it will encourage them to get back to it, because we want the game to have to be open to everybody and for everybody to have the possibility to be there now.
Absolutely. We'll get up to Scotland very shortly, but Johnstone Football Club must have very much known that we were on at 6 p.m. tonight. So they've obviously released some breaking news at 6 p.m. tonight. And that news is Liam Gordon has signed a new contract with St Johnstone Football Club until the summer of 2024. Everyone at St Johnstone is thrilled with the news, as Liam is a Perth boy and supported Saints all of his life. And Angus, great news for St Johnstone getting Liam Gordon signed up till 2024 there.
Yeah, absolutely. Cracking player. He's shown last season and so far this season that he's a great talent to have. Especially with Jason Kerr leaving. When you're at one of these kind of a smaller clubs and that, you're always just kind of holding on and waiting for your best players to be pinched. So the fact that they've been able to tie down one of their key starters is great news. Obviously, that doesn't mean that he can't leave in the future, but it guarantees St Johnstone, that kind of security that not only are they going to have him possibly for like a certain amount of time, but that they could also command a fee for him if somebody does come in. It's not going to be a situation where they're going to get nothing for all the hard work that they've done for developing this kind of player. But yeah, the player himself absolutely tremendous and very deserving of a new contract.
Of course, go back onto the Red Zones to the scat point, and when a team, any team for that matter, plays one of the Glasgow two or one of the Glasgow big two, you look at this and go and say it's a cup final to an extent for the like your Heartses or your Hibses, your Aberdeens, your Livingstones. Rangers play Hearts coming up in Ibrox in October the 16th. It promises to be a great atmosphere if Rangers, of course, relax their red zone requirements that they no longer need, obviously.
Yeah, it's the perfect game for us to be having in the league for fans kind of coming back. I mean, first versus second, two teams who are in hot form, two teams who do provide a great atmosphere wherever they go. So yeah, I think it's absolutely tremendous. Hopefully Rangers will be able to accommodate the away fans in the way that we're going to be talking about here. It would be a massive miss if not. But yeah, hopefully Hearts can go there. Hopefully they can take the confidence that they've had, and then have the boost of away fans being there as well, and can make a real cracking tie out of it. Not sure if it's being televised or not, but if so, then I think it's got the making to be a really really great spectacle for us to all see.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of, we're going to go into Scotland now, and it's a big week coming up for Scotland. They've got Israel on Saturday, followed by the Faroe Islands on Tuesday. We're going to start with Israel at the weekend, and this is the potential to start. The momentum's already very well and very high within the Scotland camp after the heroics in Austria, but this is the potential to grow this even more and get another big 3 points, which would be big towards the World Cup qualification process.
Yeah, 100%. This game coming up against Israel on Saturday, it's definitely the biggest game that we've got left in these kind of ties. And now, we're sitting kind of decently in second and now. If we win this game, then we're sitting very, very pretty. And then winning from that, the confidence will just continue to go higher and higher. And hopefully we can take that into, the kind of final 3 games after that and, kind of secure our place in that playoff spot. But yeah, with Scotland, it always does seem as if you're kind of a couple of results away from a bit of doom and gloom. You could kind of see that coming about the last international break. If we hadn't won that game against Austria 1-0, would there have been as much optimism going into this one? Probably not. But however, we did come out of that game with a 1-0 victory. Now playing Israel at home, we've only got ourselves to back, and hopefully, hopefully the guys can get the job done.
Is Saturday the opportunity, do you feel, just an opportunity for Scotland to look at this and go and say, we're progressing here, we're doing well, yeah, we've got our critics, but we're progressing here?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is the game that we really need to stamp our authority on, and taking our own hands in essentially. This is basically make or break. If we end up, kind of squandering this chance to, put everything in our favour, I think we go and play, was it Faroe Islands and Moldova after that. By being able to, put some, space between us and the teams who are behind us would be, huge for us. It'd be a real statement of intent because, we've not really ever done that in these kind of qualifiers or that. We've never really kind of taken that next step to, take it into control. If we manage to beat Israel and then win the next 2 games as well, if we know that we're going to be in a playoff spot, that means that, we're in a pretty position where Clark can, start to think about what to do next. What can he do? What can he work on? What's the next step to go from here? And yeah, I think that's what's the most important thing is getting the result on Saturday.
Absolutely. And then if you get the result on Saturday, that's great to push on. And then we're going to a Faroe Islands game where you look at it and go, Scotland will be heavy favourites going into the game, but we all know with Scotland how they can go and succumb at the most even exciting of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the most Scotland thing ever to, to go and beat Israel quite convincingly, and then go and play Faroe Islands and draw or get beat somehow. I think it was at the 2002 qualifiers that we ended up drawing with Faroe Islands back in the days like Paul Lambert and Barry Ferguson were playing. So I think as Scotland fans, we've always kind of got those memories in our heads. I think it was Georgia back in 2008 that kind of scuppered us up as well. So for many people, probably who are going on Saturday and that, they're probably more fearful of the game against Faroe Islands than they are against Israel because, what history's kind of taught us to kind of feel like. But um, with the squad that we've got right now, it really shouldn't be. We shouldn't really have any kind of difficulties, and we should be putting them to the sword as well. But we've got to take care of Saturday first, and kind of take each game as it goes by then.
Absolutely. Right, I'm going to do something different for this show this evening, and I'm going to give everybody a chance to go and predict the team that drew 2-2 against the Faroe Islands for indeed Scotland in 2002. Now, we'll start with a Celtic persuasion, and the players that played for Scotland that day that were of a Celtic persuasion were Rab Douglas, Paul Lambert, who else have we got? I think there was only 2 Celtic players in the team from what I'm reading. Do you know any other players that were playing in that game before I reveal the full team, Angus?
So you're saying no other Celtic players, so that means no McNamara then, right?
McNamara didn't play. No, he wasn't even on the bench. No.
Try to go back to that long. Revealing my age that I'm not quite as old to perfectly remember that, but I'll go with 2002. Christian Daly.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you the full team, or do you want to keep guessing?
Oh, I'm not really sure how many more I'd actually get. Barry Ferguson playing.
Yeah, both Lambert and Ferguson, of course, scored that evening in question. That day, sorry.
Neil McCann.
McCann, I don't. No.
Nah, I've got absolutely no idea for the rest of them.
Right, I'll tell you all the team. So it was Rab Douglas in goals, like he said. Like I said, sorry. Christian Daly, of course, played. Maurice Ross played. David Weir, Stephen Craney, Barry Ferguson, Alan Johnston, Paul Lambert, Paul Dickov, Scott Dobie, and as Greg Hay put in here, Kevin Kyle did indeed start in that game in question. The substitutes that came on that day, Stevie Crawford came on for Dickov, Graham Alexander came on for Maurice Ross, and Stephen Thompson came on for Scott Dobie. On the bench was Paul Gallagher, Kevin McNaughton, Lee Wilkie, Gareth Williams, and obviously I've touched on the other players that were in the squad that day in question. Obviously, from a Scotland persuasion, we'll just be looking for a win. A win in both games, but even more so this Saturday against Israel.
Yeah, definitely. If we're going to be really serious about taking this and putting it in our own hands, then the win against Israel would put us in such a great position to do so. If we don't, it may not be the end of the world, but we know it'll be an uncomfortable ending to the campaign. We've also got to play Denmark. We wouldn't want to be going into the game against Denmark wanting to pick up any points because how flying that they've been. I don't even think they've not lost any games. I'm not even sure if they conceded many goals at that as well. So we don't want to be leaving up to kind of our chances. We've got a perfect opportunity to kind of end things here. Well, not end things. We've also got our games against Faroes and Moldova and that. But yeah, puts us in pole position if we can manage to get the 3 points here.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to go to more recent times, and I'm going to put you on the spot yet again. This time it's from 2018 when we played Israel. Scotland could beat in this evening in question, but give me an idea. I'll obviously go through the team in a minute, but give me an idea who played that night in question. When was the game? Good question. When was the game? The game was on the Thursday, the 11th of October, 2018. Scotland got beat 2-1 by Israel. I'll give you a clue, guys. There's a red card in this game for Scotland.
Now that you said a red card, I've got absolutely no idea. But I guess I'll just go Marshall in goals.
No, McGregor started goals.
Oh dear. Great start already. Robertson left back, surely.
Well, he played free at the back that night, but yeah, he did play.
Robertson. You saying that makes me think that there was no Tierney.
Tierney did play. Tierney did
Tierney
play.
did play as well. Oh God, 2018. This is showing how bad my memory is. We'll go for James Forrest
No, he was on the bench.
on the bench.
He came on though. He came on with 23 minutes to go in that game.
I remember that very vividly. Naismith, would Naismith have played still then?
Yeah. He played until 76 minutes before coming off for Ollie McBurney.
Oh, jeez. Not a very pretty substitution to be making. Midfield, John McGinn.
McGinn played a full 90. Yeah.
Christie.
Christie. No.
McTominay.
McTominay. I don't. No. I think it was before his time.
That's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to think of the players who obviously we've got a lot of players who just kind of started up again, like Jack Hendry, McTominay, Dykes, Adams, and that. I'm trying to think of who would have been prior to that. Callum McGregor, surely he played in that. He didn't miss many games in 2018.
He did, yeah. No, he was actually number 11 for some odd strange reason.
Bizarre one. Ryan Fraser.
Fraser. No, I don't think. No.
No Fraser. I'm trying to think defenders. Scott McKenna.
McKenna was on the bench. Graham Caldwell, you're absolutely right with Mulgrew, so well done for that. In fact, McKenna came on for Mulgrew at half time in that game.
I've got absolutely no idea for the rest of them. If Mulgrew's in that, I've got no chance.
I'll give you the full team. McGregor starting goals. It was John Suter that got sent off that night in question.
Okay.
Charlie Mulgrew, Kieran Tierney, Stephen O'Donnell, presuming, because it's number 2, so I'm presuming Stephen O'Donnell.
Should have known better.
Yeah. John McGinn, Kevin McDonald, Andy Robertson, Johnny Russell, Carl McGregor and Stephen Naismith. The bench for Scotland that night was Craig Gordon, Jack Hendry, Scott McKenna, Graham Shinney, Stuart Armstrong, James Forrest, Ollie McBurney, and another goalkeeper in the shape of John McLaughlin. But with regards to this Saturday, how do you think Scotland will line up against Israel?
I think it's just going to be very much of the same as what we've seen, other than Grant Hanley's almost going to have to drop out. I think you'll probably see basically the exact same team as usual. Craig Gordon will come in goals again. Robertson, Tierney. You're probably talking Jack Hendry will keep his place. You're probably talking McTominay will keep his place because Hanley's injury. I'm not really sure I want to see him, but you've probably got to think that O'Donnell will start. Not saying that he's a bad player, but I just kind of want, as most of the country probably do, want us to move on to maybe a wee bit more of an attacking player in that sense. Wouldn't say he's ever let us down drastically or that, but maybe we're looking for a time to kind of move on from that. Perhaps this game isn't the best to experiment with that, and that would give O'Donnell more of a claim to start. Gilmore, McGregor have to start with one another because two of the best kind of passers from the ball, kind of controlling the game. John McGinn off of them because he's so pivotal in that midfield. And then for me, Dykes and Adams has got to be the strike force that we've got to go with. I don't think they had an awful lot of game time together, but this will be. I think they're quite clearly our two best strikers, and will be pivotal if we're going to get any joy against Israel.
Absolutely, and you just look at this and go and say to yourself, if we can go and attack Israel, we've got plenty of opportunities to get the win at the weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's been a kind of a main gripe with us when we have played Israel quite a lot in the past, is that it's been kind of boring and that we've not kind of properly taken it to them. They have some decent players, but I don't think they're a team that we should necessarily be feeding. And with kind of some of the players that we've got, we should be doing a lot better with against them. I think a couple of them have been 0-0s or 1-1s or whatever. Hopefully, that wee extra bit of quality that we do have. I mean, likes of Robertson, every time he plays against that right back, the right back seems to turn into prime Cafu and, somehow has an absolute stormer. The likes of those, we're looking for those kind of players to step up and, can give us that extra edge when we're going forward.
Of course, Israel are facing an injury crisis ahead of this clash with Scotland at the weekend, with as many as 4 players ruled out for the trip to Glasgow. The national team have been slaughtered for calling up defender Idan Nashmias, if that's pronounced correctly, who Maccabi Tel Aviv boss Patrick Van Leeuwen says he's nowhere near full fitness. And Angus, I think it's great that we're having these problems, the other teams are having these problems rather than Scotland for a change.
Yeah, definitely. So we can only take those kind of things into in our favour. If they're playing with somebody like him at the back, then hopefully the likes of like Dykes, who's been tremendous at the start of this season, Adams has had a bright start as well. We can kind of capitalise on that. I'd imagine that Israel may start with Nir Beaton in the heart of that defence as well. So you're talking about kind of maybe two players straight away who are thought to be kind of lacking match sharpness, not regularly kind of starting for their teams so far this season. But as it is with Scotland always, these kind of players can sometimes just pull out performances and, we'll be left there scratching our heads. But we've just, again, it's in our hands. We've got to take it in our and make the business our own.
Absolutely. The fact, looking ahead to the weekend, is we've had some fantastic performances from individual players at the week during last week. I mean, we're going to go back to Livingston briefly. Lyndon Dykes continues excellent form for Queen's Park Rangers heading into international break. He opened the score for the side at the weekend before he poked home this effort from close range. And also, I don't know if he's noticed on Twitter, he also had the wee header. So he's a good form from Mark Warburton's side just now.
Yeah, absolutely. Lyndon is, I think, very much kind of a confidence player, and regardless of that, he's always going to give his all. And I think that's kind of something that some teams they take for granted at times as a player who will just kind of be a nuisance. He could be a wee bit more kind of clinical for us up front, but we've got to keep on creating chances for him. But yeah, definitely coming into this season where he's one of the top goal scorers in the championship, and he's creating a lot of goals as well. It's only a bright spark for us, and can hopefully be something that works in our favour. Kevin Nisbet just scored at the weekend there as well, so that'll be a good confidence boost for him coming back into the squad as well. We really only have got kind of three options up front because there's not really anybody kind of close. So as long as they can all provide decent competition for one another, it can help bring the best out of one another and bring more results to our team.
This provides a lot of debate. Nathan Patterson or Stephen O'Donnell?
I mean, I did just say there that I wasn't too sure about, O'Donnell, if I wanted to see O'Donnell at right back. However, I then started to go on to talk about how, maybe this isn't quite the game to, kind of make such a change in the squad. I know Nathan Patterson is an absolutely tremendous player, and he is going to be, probably Scotland's right back for the future. But I do kind of see why you would stick with O'Donnell in this case, because he is the tried and trusted. Maybe sometimes he's unspectacular, but you look at kind of all the recent games that we've kind of played, and he's not really put a foot wrong. The only kind of thing that kind of keeps on going back with Patterson is not playing excessively at Rangers. I mean, I think he did start just there. He might have played a lot more than I've probably given him credit for. In all honesty, I expect to have years injured. But I think either option, I'd kind of be, I would get behind because I could see either side. If we're going to go out and completely go and attack, then yeah, I think Patterson's absolutely the one who we should kind of go for, because he does have that extra quality going forward, I would say.
Absolutely. Grant Hanley suspended at the weekend, a massive loss for Scotland.
Yeah, it's kind of mad to think that fans would be saying that like a couple of years ago, but he's really turned it around, and he's became a bit of a favourite within the Tartan Army because of that kind of role that he's playing in there, how solid he has been. But yeah, it'll be a big miss because as that central defender, usually playing alongside Tierney, who's a left back, and McTominay, who's a defensive midfielder. He is that kind of leader. He's that organiser. He's the one who really takes control, and that could be something that could be maybe a downfall from us. Maybe from like set pieces or just like in game in general. We've not got that player who's kind of barking and commanding the odds. But hopefully he'll be back very soon, and those players who take his place in the starting 11 can live up to what he's done in the last couple of games.
Do you think the fact we've got more fans back in now will help Scotland, because we'll have a more resurgent Scotland? And we've had games against Israel over the years where, especially over the last 12 months, where it's been played behind closed doors and there's been a lack of atmosphere, which has probably helped in terms of the lacklustre performance. Yeah, we've maybe won in one games, but the performance hasn't been nowhere near our best because of maybe the atmosphere.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you say to any of those players that, if you can't get up for this game with that crowd out there, then, football's not for you, essentially. It'll make a massive difference. I think it's the first time, since the England game that we're at a sellout for a match. And, for a game against just Israel, that's quite remarkable. But there is just so much that's riding on this. Hopefully the pressure isn't too much. That's the only kind of thing I can maybe think of. But yeah, these players have got to be relishing this opportunity to be playing in front of, that kind of a crowd. That's why these guys want to be footballers playing at the top level. They want to be taking in these kind of experiences. Hopefully, we've got, the team will be, at it from the start. The Tartan Army will get, right behind them, and we can roar them onto a victory.
How important's momentum at club football for players? Because I mean, I touched upon it with Lyndon Dykes there. You said you mentioned this, but also Ryan Chris has enjoyed a terrific start since joining Bournemouth, and with regards to the weekend, he's done very well for club football. But wanted to keep that momentum going at international level.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever you're in good form, the players themselves will be feeling the best that they possibly can. Going into an international break, you've put that extra thought into the manager's head that you can make all that difference in a deciding matter of a game. 100% that anything's good for a player. I mean, I just talked about like how Lyndon Dykes is a kind of a confidence player. Him scoring and getting an assist the week before, that you can't really go into the next game thinking, oh, I'm not really going to do anything. You'd be going in, but yeah, I'm going to do that again. So yeah, the fact that we're coming into teams, having a good bit of players having a good bit of form here, puts us in a good place, I would say.
Yeah. I was speaking to contacts today before my game plan went completely scuppered out the window with regards to the red zones being scrapped, which is fantastic, by the way, but it meant I had to change my game plan for this show tonight. With regards to the left-hand side, I was speaking to a big Scotland fan today, and he was telling me about the left-hand side in defence. Obviously, Scotland are more renowned now to play a three at the back with two wing-backs, but would you have a left-sided player in there just in the event that Robertson gets injured or indeed Taylor gets injured for cover?
As in, just like in the squad in general,
Yeah.
because with not any Taylor, yeah, I guess so. I think again though we're kind of limited to who we can have because I believe that Aaron Hickey just pulled out of the under-21 squad through injury. So what other kind of proper options that we've got there, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I guess like you kind of always need that kind of cover just in case, worst case scenario comes along. I guess, they're looking at the fact that, hopefully that Robertson and Tierney both won't, can be able to pull out and, like Liam Cooper can play on that left-hand side. But yeah, I'm trying to think, is there anybody who comes to your head who, would be a better admission, who would be a decent inclusion into the squad?
In terms of that position of concern, not really. I mean,
Yeah.
your priority will be Robertson and Tierney, and that's the bottom line here. But with regards to cover, the last thing Scotland fans want to be debating on this channel, indeed any other social media channel by next week, is we've not got him. Who we're going to play? What system we're going to play? And one suggestion actually came up, and I do agree with him. From Strange Love the Doctors, Josh Doig. I think he'd be brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And he probably is near a Scotland call-up in the near future if we can get the system right.
Yeah, definitely. Completely blanked my mind there, but 100% he should be, the kind of the next one in line. Hopefully, if he keeps on progressing, it won't be too long for the likes of him or Hickey to, kind of break into the team. But yeah, I guess we just kind of got to hope that, Robertson and Tierney, keep up that kind of way. I think the interesting thing is if one of them gets injured, do you persist with the five at the back in that case, or do you kind of move somebody else in? Probably not, because I think Clark wants to keep as much continuity as usual as possible as well. But yeah, it's definitely for thought.
Absolutely. I mean, Scotland under 21s now, they play Denmark at Tynecastle Thursday evening. And you touched upon Aaron Hickey there, Angus, but also Calvin Ramsey's pulled out with injury as well. That's two major losses to Scotland under 21s for such a big game on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was something a lot of fans were just looking forward to probably seeing as well. Hickey's scored 2 goals recently in Serie A and playing quite consistently there.
He was the top rated player in the Serie A last weekend on the WhoScored.com.
Lovely, even better then. So I think a lot of people would have been kind of buzzing to see him involved in the kind of setup, because I don't think he's actually played for under 21s yet. I think he might have been called up for a few times, but has kind of pulled out. Calvin Ramsey as well has been excellent at Aberdeen this season and the tail end of last year. So yeah, it was just kind of two kind of young players who we're looking forward to seeing. Will they be able and even with thoughts to bring them up to the senior squad straight away as well. But injuries happen at unfortunate times, and hopefully the guys make a speedy recovery, and it won't be too long before we see them back in the squad soon.
Yeah. Now, I promised Angus about an hour ago that we'd have a really good spread of Livingston Football Club this evening. So we've got 10 minutes to go, and it's important we go and speak about Livingston. So, how would you assess the report card so far from a Livingston point of view this season, Angus?
It's not really positive in the slightest, to be honest. It's when it comes to Livingston, it's a very kind of strange thing to kind of talk about because expectations have to be kind of put in place. We are comfortably the lowest budgeted team in the league. We are comfortably the lowest supported team in the league. There are many things that that indicate that we should be in this position where we are right now. The issue that most of us are kind of getting is that there doesn't seem to be much of a purpose or a point in the things that we're doing right now, and that's the most concerning thing. There's not a team identity. Obviously, when we first came up to the league, we were known for being incredibly stubborn at the back. Kind of progressed on from there for being very tenacious in the middle of the park, won't give you a second to breathe, and then even last season being quite a clinical counter-attacking side. None of them can be said about us this season, as it just kind of seems pretty much aimless, and I think that's where a lot of the gripes are coming from. It's not kind of sour grapes from fans being like, oh, we were top six the last 2 seasons, we should be there again. And I think that's maybe something that David Martindale's recent comments have maybe kind of turned fans maybe against them, because he said that the expectations have to kind of be reeled in. It isn't these kind of just single games in isolation that we're kind of worried about. It's a 30 game span now that has become the issue.
Absolutely. Apologies for looking at the sky there for a minute. It's just one of my bulbs just went out, but fortunately for you guys, you can still see me. I got a bit of a shock there, but let's continue on. And Greg Hayes came with a question here saying, "How's your local lad doing for Livingston this season?" I'm assuming you know me very well, Greg. So if you do, I hope you're well. I'm assuming you're on a bit of certain Bruce Anderson. I was telling Angus earlier on that also from that neck of the woods. So. With regards to Bruce, Angus, you were telling me earlier on that you want a bit more from him.
Again, for Bruce, it's a wee bit difficult because I think he's been somebody who's suffered a couple of injuries earlier this season. I think he had a diabetic fit on the park at Easter Road, which isn't ideal at all. But yeah, in a couple of the games, it doesn't seem to be ideal. The main thing I think that Bruce is kind of suffering from is how I talked about there's no real kind of aim in the way that Livingston are playing. And, Bruce is about a 5'8", 5'9" striker. He's not putting himself about an awful lot, but at the same time, he's been humped balls up against massive centre halves, so you can't really expect him to do an awful lot with. So I feel like, we kind of need to go to the drawing board with, how we're going to play with Bruce Anderson up front, because right now it's hopeless because he can do all he can, but whenever he's up against 6'4" defenders, he's not going to get any joy against them. But hopefully, there's more to come from him because we've seen how good he was at Hamilton at the end of last season. Still not seen the best of him just here, but hopefully, we'll turn that corner soon.
The thing for Anderson is he's got the infrastructure there, he's got the system there, but he maybe just needs a bit more work or a bit more. He just maybe needs to be a bit more streetwise in front of goal.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we've only scored, I think it's 3 goals in the league so far this season, so it's not a great return. I think Bruce has got one of them. It was a header against Aberdeen. But, yeah, I think it's just mainly he's got to get himself in those kind of opportunities. But, again, I do sympathise with him because, coming to a new club, he's not really getting the service, that, is required for a proper number 9 like him who wants to get into the box. I mean, the fact that most of this season we've played with, kind of a 4-3-3, but we don't actually play with wingers in those positions. I mean, Forrest has probably been our best player, but he's been benched recently for like Penrice to play left wing, for Ben Williamson to play on the right wing and that as well. So it's a bit of a strange thing at the moment at our club.
Absolutely. Strange Love the Doctors came in here, says Livingston are a purpose-built, statistically organised home-built team. Terrible to watch away from home, but will maximise home advantage. Would you agree with that, Angus?
This season more so, I would say that in all honesty, we're just hopeless from both right now. It does seem to be playing for just to get us the ball like as high up the park as much as we can, as quick as possible with no kind of real aim. Of course, a lot will be said about the kind of the home pitch and all of that, but it's just a much kind of smaller kind of packed kind of stadium and that as well. So it is kind of more designed for us to sit out. I mean, the fact that, our best performance this season's game against Celtic, where we've just been able to put 10 men behind the ball and we've not been able to do anything else against any other team, is absolutely it's not very great for us to be able to say, in all honesty. We played St Mirren just there, and we just seem to run out of ideas quite a lot. Away from home, I think it was made perfectly clear in the kind of like the first couple of seasons that we were up that we weren't great away from home. That's starting to slip into our away bit now. I don't know if teams have all just kind of sussed us out, and ultimately it could lead to us, leaving the division.
It's like watching an algorithm in action, isn't it?
And what terms? Just like in how we're playing.
Well, I'm just relying on Strange Love the Doctor's comment, but I'm assuming it's about just how Livingston set up and the way to play.
Aye, it does seem to be kind of very rigid in the fact that there's not an awful lot of changes that get made to us. I mean, prime example was just on like Saturday there. Andrew Shinnie goes off injured. We try to use him as somewhat of a target man. Bruce Anderson comes on against Shaughnessy, Fraser, and I think McCarthy, and we're still deciding to just keep on shelling the ball up, just with that one hope that one will fall to us in the right area, but it never did. And more often than not now, I mean, I think it's like the last 29 games we've only won about 4 of them. I think 2 of them were against Cowden Beef and Brecon as well. So it shows you that whatever's going on isn't working, but there also seems to be a massive hesitancy to try and do something about it. We keep on trying to play for those percentages that they're not doing us any good at this moment.
Absolutely. Our next questions came in from Graham Caldwell, and it's a guy I love. And first and foremost, I want your reaction to Joel Newbley getting the Championship Player of the Month. Just a tremendous accolade from Joel.
Yeah, it's incredibly disappointing depressing to hear that the best player at the club is tearing it up in a different division for Arbroath right now. Every week we keep on seeing that there's a new highlight from Newbley from whatever he's doing. I mean, the game against can't mind who it was, but it was on BBC Scotland a couple of weeks ago. We got man of the match. Got man of the match there, and just some of the goals that he scored. I mean, there was a run that he did against Queen of the South. If we were wanting to play with that kind of a striker who's a bit physical but can then also do something in front of goal, it's just horrible to look at, that we have somebody on the books who, we've sent out on loan for, half the season. But hopefully in January, we'll be able to come back and recreate that form.
And Newbley would act as a focal point, and he could give players running off him, can't he?
Yeah, definitely. As I've said, we're persisting with, this ridiculous long ball. Somebody like that who, maybe not isn't, necessarily the traditional target man, but is, somebody who can take the ball at his feet, get away from defenders and, get us up the park. We've been missing that, basically since Robinson left the club. But we're in desperate need of him, and hopefully when it comes to January, he'll slot right back into that team and, we'll kick on from there.
I was speaking to you off there, Angus, with regards to Josh Milne. Having watched him as a reporter at Easter Road when Hibs played Livingston, and he ran the show for Livingston that day. And being an Aberdeen fan myself, even though I don't really admit it too much, he was one of those players that I looked at and go, he'd be a tremendous player for Aberdeen. And you were alluded to a COVID outbreak that concerned Josh Milne, which ultimately led to a slow decline. But you'll be hoping once everything's a bit back to normal that he can go and get back to his best again.
Yeah, 100%. We had a very, very poor pre-season in terms of preparation, mainly due to things that were out with our control. And there was a COVID outbreak, that Josh ended up being a part of. So that meant he missed a lot of pre-season. He also, I think, he had a bit of paternity leave because he just became a dad, which is absolutely fair enough. So I think that was the main kind of thing that came into play, was that I think Davey was eyeing up the squad and was saying that it might not be possible for Josh to play an awful lot of football, and it would take him a while to kind of get up to full fitness. So sending him out on loan to a team who would kind of start him kind of immediately would be the best thing to do. Josh is a terrific player, being a terrific servant for us, and his set pieces alone usually kind of guarantee him a spot in the team, because he's got a delivery that very few in Scottish football can actually match. So hopefully things can get back to normal. Hopefully he can be back up to full fitness. He's a player that whenever it was announced that he was going on loan to Hamilton, all the fans were like, how are we letting this happen? And even more so now when, we've had injuries, we've not had an awful great quality from the right-hand side, and Josh seems like he'd be a perfect fit for in that position.
Do you think the home ground allows for you to play in the way you're accustomed to? Because the Tony Macaroni Arena is very short and narrow.
I guess so, yeah. In that kind of example, yeah. I would like to see us, maybe everybody kind of makes a big song and dance about the surface. I would like to maybe see us utilise that a wee bit better. If teams aren't used to, passing on it, whatever. I mean, like Raith Rovers have a plastic pitch and play some of the nicest football in the Championship, I would say. But for us, we seem to be very much the opposite. We don't really want to get it on the deck as much. In previous years, it was, when it got into that final third, we would do so. But right now, it definitely isn't the case.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for tuning into the show. We're past the hour mark, so it's time for us to blow the full-time whistle. And of course, as I alluded to earlier at the top of the show, we are sponsored by ETIV Watches, who have a competition running right now. If you obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel, you have the opportunity to win yourself a free watch, and everybody would love a free watch nowadays. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I've been David Smith, and he's been Angus McGregor, and we'll see you again tomorrow night in the next instalment of The State of Scottish Football. Thanks.